All right, we are live. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'm already seeing a lot of comments on YouTube. If you are here with us, if you're watching this live, please leave a quick note in the comments. Let us know if you can see us, if you can hear me right now, so we know we're all set up. And let us know where you're joining from. I'd love to know that. My guests are already here. I'm going to introduce them in a few minutes. Before we dive into the actual roundtable, I have a few very quick housekeeping slides with me that I want to share with all of you who are already here. So let me go through those really quickly. If you are here with us or via YouTube right now, and you haven't joined our Bootcamp Facebook community yet, you can find the link to the community in the comments now. This is a pop-up community where we get to talk about all the live trainings. We are able to recap the insights we learned from this roundtable. We have our worksheets and workbooks in there. It's going to close next week, but until then, we're very active there. We hope to support you in every possible way. So come join us over there as well. We have a worksheet for this particular session as well. You can find the link in the comments too. So feel free to download that and take a few notes, reply to or answer the questions in there, and share your answers with the community at the end of the day. And last but not least, we also have a link in the comments to the masterclass, which is happening on Thursday. So even if you are signed up for the bootcamp, sign up separately for the masterclass so you receive all the right links to log in, because that one is not going to be streamed to YouTube or Facebook. All right, that's it on the housekeeping side. I'm going to put my slides down now, and I am here with my amazing guests. You guys, I know you, or all of you, for a while now. I know that most of the people here with us in the chat right now know most of you probably quite well, but I'd still love to ask you for a very quick introduction on who you are and what you do. So just give us a quick 1-minute intro of who you are. And I'm going to be a bit selfish here, and I'm going to start with the only other woman in the room, Zuli. A special thanks to you for being here. Zuli told me a few hours ago that she's not feeling 100% well, but that she's still going to be here. So I appreciate that an extra lot amount because it's not, we don't take that for granted. So thank you for being here despite not being 100% fit. Want to give us a quick intro?
I would not have missed it. Yeah, so for anybody, excuse me, I'm sorry. My name is Zuli. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm a creator primarily on Medium and YouTube. And what I do is I make content to help other people grow their online writing empire. My somewhat corny belief is that I really do think the world would be a better place if everybody who wanted to write, everybody who had a story to tell, had the tools they needed to get that story out there. And that's what I try to help enable.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Tony, do you want to go on?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tony. I'm the newest CEO at Medium. I've been here for 2 months now, I think. Before that, I was a writer and publisher on Medium and founder of a company called Coach.me. And yeah, super excited to be here. I think we'll get into what Medium is doing, and I'm excited to hear, and what other people are doing too, and try to find some better way to help creators and help readers improve their lives. These things are intertwined. So looking forward to it, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. Justin, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm seeing all the comments roll in on the side here, and there's people from all over the world. So hello, it's awesome to see everybody. I'm Justin. I co-founded and currently manage the Writing Cooperative. We are the largest publication on Medium dedicated to writing advice. And I am also a big fan of encouraging and supporting writers in any way that I can. So I'm glad to be here and glad to be a part of this and glad to see all of the people chiming in and saying hello.
Thank you so much. Last but not least, John, give us a quick intro.
Last but not least, hey everyone, my name is John Brosio. I said this before live, but to be surrounded with these four people is really an honor for me. I owe a lot to Medium. Went through kind of a life-changing event back in 2017, found Medium, and it was kind of a cathartic tool that I was able to use to process everything that was going on. One thing led to another. If you know who I am, you probably found me on Medium or Twitter. And similar to, I think, everyone here, I'm trying to empower this new wave of creators to take control of their lives in a very unique way. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Now I want to keep this short, but I want to say a few words too. I don't take this for granted at all. Like when I started to write online or create content online, which for me too was Medium the first place, I didn't know anyone. Like I didn't know anyone creating content or writing, like not just in an online way, but also in my, in my personal friends, family. That was just not a common thing to do. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I just did it on my own. I sometimes did feel alone. I don't know if you guys know that feeling. I think so. And I didn't have anyone to talk to or ask questions, etc. But I also never tried. Like I never even thought that I could just reach out to someone and ask if they wanted to hop on a call with me or answer a few questions. I see a lot of people doing that. And I think there is a kind of balance that you have to keep in terms of what do I request from someone and what can I give? But I mean, I don't consider myself to be a super introvert, but I'm certainly not, a very extrovert person either. And a lot of the people in our industry are in the US, also in this panel, right? As far as I know, all you guys are in the US right now, unless you're traveling. I'm in Europe, so naturally there is also a little bit of a gap. And I didn't have the confidence to reach out to anyone. I was really lucky that someone reached out to me. They introduced me to a few people. Zuli was one of the very first people I got to talk to, which I'm still so grateful for, because I had the honor to work with her on several projects. We did a lot together. Then I got to meet other people, and it just went on. And being here with you, being able to just shoot you a message and tell you what I'm going to do with this roundtable, and you guys being here with me, that still doesn't really feel real. So I'm really grateful for even being able to invite you. So that's everything I wanted to say on my end. Like if you would have told me 3 years ago that I'd be able to, just casually email you guys and ask you to be on such a live event with me here with hundreds of people who join us from all over the globe, I'm not sure if I would have believed you. But yeah, that's the emotional intro that I still wanted to share, even though I didn't want to make it too long. I want to get into our deep dives, and I want to start with you, Tony, because I think you have kind of that cornerstone or broad overview about Medium, which is a platform we are all actually heavily invested in. We have all written a lot. We have tried to provide value to the community. Zulia is running one of the largest, or the largest, YouTube channel to support Medium writers. I think Justin and Tony, you combined have reached more people through the publications you've built than anyone else probably has. It's just amazing to be here with a community of people who have really, I believe, made a significant and positive impact. One of the things you recently mentioned, and it was actually in Zuli's interview, that initially also sparked the idea for this entire roundtable, was that you believe writers should see Medium as kind of a stepping stone in their career instead of a place where they can just go and make a full-time income by publishing a few articles, and that Medium was never even meant to be that place. You also mentioned in the last couple of weeks in a few places that you are trying to build certain mechanisms to detect and really punish spammy behavior, like following other people's profiles to get followers back, etc. This all actually indicates that you are working heavily on increasing the quality part of Medium. Now, my question is, can you give us a few best practices from your side on how writers can benefit from Medium and use it for their career, while also bringing value to Medium?
I mean, Medium is so big. I'm almost forced to just give a bunch of caveats before I even get going, right? Like, we're completely committed to having an open platform for everyone to publish. So publish anything, right? Like, what I think you should do is irrelevant actually to a lot of people. So I think the question is really about, what are patterns that I think will work on Medium right now and that will work on Medium long term? And I think that's part of why I'm here also, is to get better at explaining those patterns and learning from actual creators that are, making a living on Medium and helping other people make a living. So I mean, to continue that caveat, at one point I told people, hey, try writing with a book in mind. And now everyone puts this back on me as that's the only way to write on Medium. And it's not. I was just saying, this is a good pattern to push yourself as a writer to go deeper onto a subject. So I think we're mostly talking about patterns. And yes, also, we are as a company, very concerned with quality for this really simple reason. Our readers are concerned with quality. So I think my tone might be slightly different than the tone of everyone else here. But I think you really exist, like, you're like really focused on helping creators, but my role is both. I have to help creators and I have to help readers, and the readers are asking for more quality. And now what quality means is, again, dependent on what topic you're in, dependent on a lot of different things. But definitely we're putting a lot of thought into it. And there's this phrase we use internally which gets at this, we're about to start punishing people, is this like sort of barbell of like, there's some stuff that's on sort of both ends of the spectrum that we think we could do a much better job of working with. So definitely, because we weren't pushing back against spammy behavior, people sort of growth hacking their way into being in front of the readers, we have a lot of, I think that's a contributing factor to how our readers perceive quality. And just like the thing that was really alarming to me is we have in our partner program right now a quality filter, that you've written enough on Medium that you have 100 followers. And of course, I would guess that people would try to get around that by sort of gaming the system to get fake followers, people that aren't following them to read them, but are following for some other reason. But I wouldn't have guessed that people would tell that to my face. So I've now had 2 authors tell me, of course I'm doing follow back, which is where you follow someone on the hopes that they'll just follow you back out of reciprocity, because otherwise they'll have to wait longer to get paid. That's what one person told me. And I was like, clearly we have not even put out into the ether that that sort of behavior is the kind of stuff that, first of all, it's against the intent, and there should be consequences for that. So it's like I don't wake up desiring to punish people, but it was shocking to me that like no one had even considered that that's against the intention and the purpose and the mission of Medium. Okay, that's the bummer side of it. The other side of the barbell is, what is quality, and how does that work both for the readers and for the authors? And I feel like now, I just talked for a bunch without actually answering the question. What was like the specific question that prompted this?
What I'd actually really love to know is, think of someone who whose writing has a clear purpose and a clear value to their audience. Think of someone in a very specific niche. I mean, I'm talking about broad niches now, but think of someone writing about health and fitness or development, and they are bringing great quality content to the platform, but they obviously also want to leverage their reach and their audience. Now, for example, one of the questions I got asked in my community often is stuff like, am I even allowed to promote my work on Medium? Like, is when I have a call to action leading to my freebie at the end of an article, is Medium going to punish me, and am I not going to be curated, etc.? And I think these are actually very important factors that creators should be very clear about, because then they know how they can use Medium effectively while bringing value to the platform. So the question is, from your perspective, what are best practices, or maybe even not best practices, but no-goes that you would like to share with the audience that would make it easier for them to understand how they can benefit from Medium's existing audience and force, while also being a value for the platform?
So let's talk about that, the pattern of a subject matter expert, which again, caveat, is different than the pattern for a poet, right? So I'm speaking just for this one particular pattern. You take a health and fitness expert. Well, why are they an expert? Is it because they're a personal trainer? I've seen a lot of those. I think that's a pretty good pattern. And one of the things I've seen in this pattern is that good writing leads to other opportunities, right? It's sort of, by definition, Medium will never be your full-time income, in the same way that writing New York Times bestsellers isn't the full-time income for Malcolm Gladwell. I bet you he makes 10 times more money in public speaking, right? It's because if you do a good job, other opportunities open up for you. So I think for a lot of subject matter experts, the payment ends up being sort of secondary. It's an issue of fairness. Like, we're getting paid, so they need to get paid too, right? But where you actually make money is that the writing becomes a sort of portfolio proof of your expertise, and lead gen in the most traditional form of content marketing. I mean, now content marketing has been like completely optimized and hacked, but there was this golden era of content marketing that just meant lead with value. Like, write about what you know as a way to build trust. And that's the type of writing I think does the best on Medium and has the most long-term support. Because if you think about, well, my dual role, how do I serve our readers? The readers really want to hear from people who know what they're talking about. And so there's a couple of ways to do fitness writing. One is to Google what other people say to do and try to summarize it and hope you got it right. That sort of derivative work sometimes can do really well, especially if you are good at writing headlines, right? You can kind of compete on virality, but the actual substance is not, I would say, is not good enough to build a subscription on. And we'll make changes to change the balance of expertise in what our subscribers see, and thus what gets paid. So that pattern just is like one of the tried and true patterns, is build an expertise and write about it, and you'll get paid in multiple different ways. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, I believe, to all of us here, which I'm really excited about to move on and really let the others talk about how exactly they did that, because I believe what you just described is what I know, at least for sure, how Zuli and John are using their content and the audiences they've built. I think, Justin, for you, it's probably a bit more different because you've built a publication and the community of writers there, though I know you still have the other side as well, and I'm really looking forward to that part of the conversation. But yeah, thank you for sharing all of that, Tony. I think we've got a bunch of really exciting comments in the chat as well that we'll hopefully be able to get back to. But I'd actually love to go to the next speaker and ask Zuli about her specific experiences actually doing what Tony just described. I mean, Zuli, you have built a huge following on YouTube, on Medium. You've offered cohort-based coaching programs. You've offering freelance writing to a bunch of clients. You have a lot of experience in that. You have a community that really loves you and loves to see you and your content, which is really absolutely amazing. I know a lot of our members and viewers here are here because of you. Give us a few insights on your experiences when it comes to using Medium as that stepping stone, as the catalyst, the way Tony actually just described. How exactly have you focused on building and creating content that has enabled you to build this strong community, to create products and services to sell to the community, but also to win freelance writing clients, for example? I think you have done that very well in a very strategic and lean way. Can you give us a few ideas on how you did that and what your biggest learnings have been over the last few years?
I'm actually so tickled that you called it strategic, because as I was thinking about how I was going to answer this, I was like, how did I I don't think I did it strategically at all. I think I did it mostly by accident. And that's what I want to start with for everyone. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. And if you know even a little bit more than I did at the start, you can do what I did, and you can do it a heck of a lot faster too. I started writing on Medium, gosh, four years ago now, thinking I was going to do a cat blog for my cats who are not in this room with me, but if you know me, you know about my cats. And over time, that really organically shifted into me using Medium as a vehicle to write about what I find really interesting and what I find really cool. And I'm very grateful to Medium for that opportunity. From that, everything just kind of happened. By accident is not the right word. It's more like Medium allowed me to pursue things that I was interested in, and because I did them well, opportunities came to me. So to give an example of the YouTube channel, I was writing on Medium for about a year before I even started my YouTube channel, and I kind of figured out how Medium worked, how to get into publications, how to write in a way that resonated with followers. And I was getting a bunch of people asking me like, oh, how did you do it? So I was like, you know what, I'll just make one video because that's easier than answering the question 1,000 times, and then I can just send people that video. And it was so fun. I had such a good time doing it. And I was like, well, what if I do more videos? And the whole YouTube channel stemmed from me just trying something new, having a good time, and finding out ways to make it more valuable for the audience. And that was very, very fun to see. And yeah, now I have more people who find Medium because of my YouTube videos than the other way around, which is really awesome. And for my freelance clients, again, it happened without any serious intent. I wrote something, what was it? Learn how to code fast or something like that. That was about my experience learning to code fast. My future client was Googling stuff, found it, and contacted me. And he was like, hey, Zuli, this is a really cool article. I would love to hire you to do more stuff for my website about similar topics. And I was like, amazing, let's do it. I love writing about this kind of stuff. I think I can do a really good job. And through that partnership, he introduced me to other clients because he was really happy with the work that I was doing, because it was work I loved doing. So I think, yeah, to call it a strategy is generous in the extreme, but I loved using Medium as the vehicle to give me all of these awesome opportunities that I feel really lucky to have had and I had the opportunity to explore.
One thing that just came to my mind that I think a lot of people watching this would love to know is you are allowing yourself to have your area of expertise, also like Tony described, and you are sharing content that is actually very niche and specific to your audience, but you're still allowing yourself to, I would say regularly or occasionally, totally tap out of that and write stuff that has nothing to do with it. What I had to think about right now was the Taylor Swift
Yes.
post. I think I don't know if that's the most recent one, but it's the one that came to my mind. can you give us a very quick intro about that article, why you've written it, and your point of view when it comes to having your area of expertise and your core audience, and then allowing yourself to totally tap out of that?
Yeah, I love Taylor Swift, unironically. I think she's amazing. And I saw maybe like a month or two ago, there was a lot of headlines that were like, Taylor Swift is the worst celebrity for jet fuel usage. Fair enough, she does use her jet a lot. But I looked at this, everybody was quoting it as this like scientific study or some kind of ethically sourced sustainable study. Some random marketing agent did a bunch of math wrong and came up with these numbers and published it. And because people love to hate Taylor Swift, this one marketing agency went like super viral, got written up in like BuzzFeed, a bunch of other random tabloids. And I was mad about this because I love Taylor Swift. So I wrote an article about it, and it did pretty well, actually. I was surprised because, like you said, it's not my usual remit. But it was really fun to write. And for me, that's what I always have to remember. I am doing this because it's fun. With my skill set, I could probably make an easier, more regular paycheck doing like any other white collar job. I've got experience in like tech support and things like that. I'm doing writing because it's fun, because this is what I love to do. And if at any point it becomes a chore or it stops becoming fun, then there's no point to me doing this. So best practice is probably not to do what I do. Best practice is, like Tony said, or like Zenom, I know you say this all the time, pick one thing that you're good at and write about that. Like get really good into your expertise in this one, your niche, right? Like that's the classic advice. But for me, for it to all be worth it, I have to give myself this freedom to write my Taylor Swift fangirl posts when I feel like it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that is so interesting and valuable to know for the audience. And I'd actually love to know, Tony, what are your thoughts on that? Because I think that is kind of maybe not the opposite of what you talked about, but I think it's just a very unique, different angle to look at it. What are your thoughts on that, or on the exact way Zuli is doing it?
I mean, I tried to frame this earlier, so I'll just underline this word patterns. There's many different patterns that work, right? And one pattern is to write because you love it, of course, right? I mean, I can't imagine not having that in the mix. But what I like about Zuli is like when she describes this, she doesn't then say, you know, I'm writing about this thing and I expect to get paid big bucks for it, even though other people write about it better, you know? It's like, be clear, right? And so I think what I'm hoping to give people more clarity is that probably the best way to succeed on Medium long term is to be the most informed writer on that topic, so that there's a reason that people are reading you rather than other people. That's if you're talking about financial success. This like quality of life success, I mean, I don't think we should look past that, obviously. So there's no rule that you can't write about just what you love. I mean, I think almost everyone has that passion in them, and I can't think of the thing that I've written about most recently like that, but you know, like van life, Warriors basketball, like these things are like, I'll write about them just because I need to get it out and onto paper, so to speak. So I think it's a good pattern the way that Zuli is describing it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. And now we're probably circling back to what we talked about in the beginning, because I'd love to talk to John about how he is building his audience and how he is also monetizing his audience. John, what I really admire about you is you have recently started to grow your audience on Twitter. You recently started to be a Twitter creator, if you can call it like that, and you did really well, really quickly, have built a very impressive audience, have a very engaged audience based on what you told me. And your content is all about helping your audience become their niche's favorite creator, which means you are on the other, or it's not the other side, but on the side of people saying, be specific, be very niche, and provide a very specific value. What I'd love to hear from you is, how exactly does your, let's call it, business model work? Like, how are you building and monetizing your audience? I mean, you have Twitter and Medium, these are the two places I personally have been following and that I believe are your core channels. How are you bringing them down into being a business so you can do this full time?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very accurate description. And I think to like give it a little bit of context here is both Zuli and Tony have said it without actually saying the word, but I think what good writing allows you to do with an audience is provide trust, right? Like there's ways of gamifying the system, there's ways of tricking people. But at the end of the day, when you look back 6 months into your writing journey, or when I look back, right, in the first 6 months, like there were so many people that teetered off, and I felt like because they didn't build that trust. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that. I took a note of it. But in answering your question, I come from a background of, I highlighted a little bit earlier in the intro, of going through a life-changing event where I lost my job due to a kind of a cataclysmic fire. And I needed to kind of go through a cathartic or therapeutic moment, and writing helped me do that. And I didn't have the formal expertise maybe of coming from a background that was maybe white collar professional. I worked in fine dining for many years, and I came at it through the perspective of, well, I'm not the already bona fide expert here, but I'm extremely interested in X. And so with that interest, I'm going to become an expert. I'm going to become a writer. I'm going to become a creator, and dealing with imposter syndrome and those kind of things. So the message, my mission that I'm trying to kind of share with the world is, if you feel like the underdog, if you feel like, you know, I'm not a writer because in school, like, man, I look back at college and high school and my English teachers were not, or I wasn't my English teacher's favorite person. Let's just say that. And that was something that was hard to like grapple with, but I'm working from a perspective of, and I have to thank my partner, my girlfriend, a lot for this because she's a registered dietitian, is there's a playbook in the world using psychology that like the tobacco industry has used. And I think that that's just using psychology for negative. So the curriculum, my mission is using, okay, a psychological playbook to both beat imposter syndrome, but also create an audience, but using it for good, right? Like I think the nutrition world can use a playbook, but for good. I think politics can use this playbook for good. And I think people who want to believe in themselves and they want to share their gifts with the world can use a playbook for good. So that is a little bit of an overarching view of what I create. How granular do you want to get in terms of like monetization and those kind of things? Like we can talk about email, we can talk about all those things, but I just want to know how granular and nerdy you really want to get.
Give us a quick overview. I'll just give you one quick side info. One thing we talked about in yesterday's training is thinking of your work. And I think we can think of each piece of content, but also about our work in general as a bridge. Each piece of content should lead the person, if it's educational writing, from one place to the other place they want to go by providing that bridge. Like without the bridge, it would take you longer. It would be a lot more hassle. It would be probably not even possible to get over or to go from A to B. But with our work, we should think of being that kind of bridge, providing that kind of support. And a piece of content that's mostly a relatively small bridge. If we look at our work from a bird's eye view, it's probably a huge bridge that we are trying to build. What is that bridge for you, and how are you trying to build it for your audience? I think that could probably help the audience, especially those who've been part of yesterday's training, really get a good understanding of how you're taking your journey on this, or how you're taking your audience on this journey, and how exactly it is working out for you.
Yeah. So when I think about like Medium, I think about Twitter now in 2022 is I think everything that I put out in terms of content is the most surface level of trust building that I can do with another human being who's going to read that work, right? I don't want to put out something, maybe it's like my neuroses, maybe it's because I was raised Catholic, I don't know, but I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that I'm giving something that isn't my passion, isn't my expertise, or isn't my honest opinion. From there, someone either reads it and they like it, they want to read the next piece, and trust is built. From there, you can kind of go a little bit farther, and this is where I think we start to get into the business kind of element of it, is you can further that trust building with a newsletter, for instance. And I'm big into this because I can only give you so much time of the message that I want to give you, the other human being on the other end, in a place like Twitter or Medium, because, I mean, let's just point out the elephant in the room, like, there's other writers, there's the 3 of you, Tony writes on there too, there's the 4 of you that someone else could want to get trust from them. There's Twitter is an endless stream of just content. And it's like, I think I have a message worth your time. And I know it's going to be hard to relay it in depth on the platform. So I invite people into an email newsletter. From there, I try to build even more trust. I try to give you a closer view of this world that I'm trying to create. And from there, I think the doors open up where you can create offerings, right? If you stand behind your message and your product has value, this is an opportunity to let people further into the world and raise the tide or lift the tide of all ships, right? Is the same where I have this knowledge now. I have this expertise. It's always kind of weird to say it, right? But I have this expertise of doing a certain thing and providing, again, the other person a transformation. If I've built enough trust, you believe in me, and I think, and I stand behind what I do, then there's an opportunity there for all of us to grow. And I think, again, like my core mission is become your niche's favorite creator. Is I think human beings have a perspective that, if harnessed with the right toolkit, can help make an impact on whatever size community you want to make an impact on. And again, I think like Medium, for sure, I owe so much to that platform, for having it opened this world to me a few years ago. I'm in Twitter, and I think there's other places out there as well. But I do think that this is the future of like micro entrepreneurialism that, given the right, again, tool belt, people can use.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. I think a lot of people resonate with what you just shared in terms of starting at a place where you didn't consider yourself an expert, but you've just been so interested and curious about a topic that you've been willing to dive into it, spend years educating yourself, trying, failing, collecting those lessons, digesting them, and passing them on to your audience. Love to hear that, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. One thing you already mentioned, and that I actually want to talk about with Justin, and I'm sure all of you have ideas and maybe different thoughts to share on that, is newsletters. Justin, you have built a huge, tremendous community of writers who share writing advice, which is, I think, one of the most valuable places on Medium, to be honest, because you're very selective. You're trying to be very, selective and picky, let's call it that way, in terms of what you let through and what you don't, because that's something I really appreciate, because a lot of publication editors are not in a place where they make that kind of effort. Maybe they don't make it yet. They are just in a different place. They look at the publication as something more different than you do. You've been able to really keep that quality standard high for years and help writers have this source where they can just go to, and they know it's at least, solid information that they will find there. And one of the things you do is writing a newsletter, and you do a lot of other things too. You've recently published your book. But I want to talk about your newsletter, or your newsletters, actually. I am receiving multiple. Maybe you can give us a quick overview then. But the reason I want to talk about this is I believe a lot of writers are afraid of starting a newsletter. Maybe you have a different perspective on that. Maybe you know a bit more about how your writers think about that. You want to share with us why exactly you have decided to spend so much time on your newsletters. At least that's how it looks to me reading them. They looks like you put a lot of thought and effort into them because they're so nice to read. They really do stand out. What was your main driver there? Why did you pick that channel and decide to be so, let's call it, disciplined about putting those newsletters into the world?
Well, first, thank you. That is very kind of you to say that about the newsletters. I have, I guess technically four. I have This Week in Writing, which is the Writing Cooperative's main newsletter that comes out every Tuesday. Came out earlier today for this week's issue. I have This Week in Writing Plus, which is what it's called right now because I'm bad with naming, and that's the monthly best of the Writing Cooperative that comes out on the last day of the month that kind of summarizes my favorite stories that we've published over the course of the last month. I have a newsletter without a name that just is to all of the folks that are writers for the Writing Cooperative. That's more, it just kind of goes out when there's an announcement that needs to be made or a change to our policies or rules or something that I want the writer specifically to know about. And then I have this Just In, which is my personal newsletter that is, there's no set schedule for that one. That one comes out whenever I feel like sharing something with folks.
I love the name. I just want to say that it's any pun 100% there. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, and so this Just In, there's actually an issue that comes out tomorrow on AI image generation and AI writing, which is something that is fascinating to me right now. But to kind of sum up why I have focused so much time and energy into newsletters, it's because I enjoy it. Everybody here has done is full-time writing or full-time in writing adjacent in Tony's capacity. And I did that for almost 2 full years. And I worked with clients. I did the whole bit. It wasn't fun to me. And so Zula, you said earlier that like the moment it becomes a chore, then like that's that. And my writing became less personal and more client driven, which is fine because that's how I was making money and I did well, but it wasn't fun to me and I lost some of that kind of excitement. But with the newsletters, that was always my way of having fun. And I approached newsletter writing more of a way to connect with the audience rather than to for me, it's a conversation starter. And so my newsletters are written in a way that I invite the reader to respond in some way. It's a way to engage and to educate and to share my opinions and thoughts on whatever the topic is. But it's really left typically with a question or an open-ended spot, inviting folks to chime in. And so as somebody who works with other writers and encourages other writers, I think, to answer your question, I think that newsletters are incredibly valuable because if somebody gives you their email address or subscribes to your email, then they're inviting you into some of their personal time, which we all know is incredibly limited. And so I subscribe to newsletters that I enjoy reading and that I enjoy connecting with. And if somebody gives me that same time, then I want to respect that. And I want to make sure that I'm putting something exciting, something fun, that they'll enjoy the few minutes that they take to read it. and not walk away thinking, why am I subscribed to this? I'm going to unsubscribe. Like, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I want to give them something that they enjoy when it pops into their email box.
Love that. I actually have one follow-up question for all of you. Did you always enjoy writing newsletters right from the beginning?
I mean, I have that. If everything in the writing cooperative went away, I would still want to do the newsletter weekly. Like,
Okay.
I just enjoy it that much, coming up with topics that are just fun to write about and create an opportunity for people to engage. So I have always enjoyed it.
Okay, that's so interesting because I'll just quickly share my opinion. I love writing newsletters now. I've been doing that for 3 years now. When I started to send a newsletter, and I actually also had a newsletter when I was running my workshop business. Like that's how I got into entrepreneurship. I was hosting in-person workshops, and we had totally different audience of local people here coming to our workshops. I did that like 6 years ago, and then about 3 years ago, I started to actually build an online audience and start my newsletter there. I was so freaked out about every single newsletter I wrote. Like I spent so much time on every single email that I sent out because I was so afraid of having mistakes in there, wrong links, typos, anything, that anything would go wrong and end up in people's inboxes. I didn't enjoy it at all. Like it took me so many hours to put one newsletter out there, and I was double checking, triple checking it with my partner, Philip. I didn't like it in the beginning. It was a journey for me to actually start enjoying it and let the pressure go and really look at it as a place or as a way to communicate with my audience and build an actual relationship. It wasn't like that for me right from the beginning. So it's super interesting to hear that it was different for you. John, how was it for you? Do you want to share your experiences?
Of course. I mean, I think it's like in many different areas of life. Bless you. Or sorry, that was a cough. I don't know what to say after that then.
Sorry, I thought I was muted.
You know, like you write that first, or you publish that first Medium article, and you're scared, right? It scares the crap out of you. And similar with newsletters. And I think, you know, a few years ago before I started doing them, I think it was scary for me. Now I love it for very similar reasons to Justin. But you can see like whatever type of email service provider you use, you can see when you send it out, you maybe check 24 hours later, some of your metrics and stuff, and you just see people like that left, you know, the newsletter. And it's like, in the beginning, I think, and again, I think it's leveling up in many different ways, but it's like, oh, I failed that person. And I wasn't enough. And all these different narratives come up in your head as to like, you're wrong. At least it was for me. And now like I stick to my core message, right? And I think I know I'm providing value because I believe it in myself. I do get it from external sources, you know, so there's this combination that I'm not insane and delusional, just thinking, you know, I'm giving value even though no one else is saying I am. But I know that like, as this journey goes on, because you have, well, maybe you don't have to, but I think long-term with this, like, are the people, my core audience, my core fans, the people that believe that I've built enough trust with, like, do they believe in me? And with anything you do in life, you're gonna, you know, have people either get tired of it or find something else, or, you know, it's not their focus anymore in life. And again, similar to Justin, now I love it. Like I look forward, mine goes out every Saturday morning, and I look forward to people getting it. I look forward to the day of the week where I write it and ideate it and things like that. Because again, I think if you can stand behind what you create with and believe that it's valuable, like that's what kind of changes the whole mindset of it all. So
Love that. Tony, you are probably the person in this room who has been into creating content the longest. I don't know how it is for Justin. I can at least say, from my perspective, I think you're the person in this room who has been doing that for the longest amount of time. So it's probably been a lot of time since you had these thoughts and fears, if you had them. But what are your thoughts like when you started to put your letters and emails and content out there? On which side have you been? Which kinds of thoughts did you have? Or also maybe on your perspective on what you see creators struggling with? Because I think in better marketing, for example, you've seen a lot of people showing up who want to create, but who've probably been afraid to get started.
I mean, we're talking about the love of writing, but also, writing is hard, right? It's like, someone will have the actual quote, but it's just like sit down and bleed into your keyboard, right? Like that one, right? Like I think most writers have that experience at some point. And the first time I wrote something significant was in 2003, and I stumbled into a book deal where I was supposed to be a minor co-author for a technical book, and the primary author backed out and just left me the whole book. And the problem is I didn't know the subject, which it goes back to expertise. But in order to get that book published, the way I had to become an expert, and I had to do this massive amount of research, and it was all like after hours, and I doubted myself. I doubted not just my ability to learn it, but my ability to deliver it. I really in the way that you feel guilty when you procrastinate. Like I had that worse than I've ever had in my life. And I think that was part of the struggle. But then I got to the other end of it, and that was like this niche subject in programming, which I through blood, sweat, and tears became a minor expert in. I carried that confidence with me the rest of, basically the rest of my life. Like either I'm writing about things I already know, or if I wanted to, I could go through that experience again and, really become an expert on it. As far as like how people will respond, I think there's that sort of that performance anxiety, which I have a lot of if I speak on stage, but somehow I don't have it in writing, and I just feel blessed. I don't pay any attention. Sometimes I look back and I think, how many people have received an email from me in their inbox? It's like, I don't know, 10 million people, which is wild. And I just don't, somehow I block that out. And that's my strategy there for that sort of anxiety.
I think a lot of people would love to be able to do that. I think it's not easy if you're starting out, but my experience has been that it gets a lot easier over time. I will actually believe, and Zuli, I'd love to hear your opinion on that. I believe one reason writers who write in places like Medium struggle so much with the newsletter is because they don't think about it as writing. They have a different perspective on what the newsletter is. And that was also the case for me. I had this weekly newsletter that was 3 years ago, which was structured the exact same way every single week. And I had the exact same content every single week. And it didn't feel like writing. It felt like a totally different task. When I started to write newsletters without a schedule and with emojis and having fun in the newsletter, it started to feel like a conversation. And I still didn't start out having that conversational tone, but I think it's actually a strength and an advantage of writers that emails and newsletters are actually such an important factor, such an important cornerstone of your work and life as a creator or as a digital entrepreneur, however you want to call yourself. Like newsletters are kind of a must have. That's why all of us here have it. And I think you can have so much fun as a writer writing newsletters if you allow yourself to look at the newsletter writing as more creative writing than this formal thing that you have to write and send out because people tell you have to do this.
I fully
How
agree.
was your experience, Uli?
Yeah, I was terrified of newsletters, I guess, like a lot of people here, so you can probably relate. I had this idea in my head of what I thought newsletters were supposed to be, and yeah, they were very structured. They were the exact same every week, and I was like, I will never be able to do something like that well enough to make it worthwhile. So I just didn't do it. And I knew, because every smart creator was saying the exact same thing like you. If you want to succeed, a newsletter it's not optional, or if it is optional, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to connect with the people who want to hear from you. Like, that's such a gift. And yeah, eventually I was like, all right, I have to do it. I have to start a newsletter. I opened one up and I found the exact same thing. I was like, hey, I'm writing an article. This is really fun. And I started thinking about, I guess, like similar to Justin, like I was thinking, what do I like about newsletters? What all the newsletters that I'm like excited to open, what do they have in common? How can I give that to people who read my stuff? And I stopped worrying about doing different structures, and I stopped worrying about like having to do the exact same structure every time. And I was started getting a little more conversational and a little bit more open, and I started asking people to reply to my emails so I could have a conversation, and that's when it started becoming fun. And it's not fun all the time. It is a part of my job, and it does sometimes feel like, okay, it's time to sit down and write the newsletter. Like I'm not going to say that for me it's a 100% a joy all the time, but for the vast majority of the times, it is now a fun thing to do because I've shifted my perspective into like, all right, how can I make this fun for me and for the people who are at the other end of the line?
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope that conversation on newsletters was encouraging for a lot of the people watching this, because it is such a strong force. It's such a beautiful way to connect with your audience. And it is okay if you feel afraid at first. So most of us here we didn't start out feeling comfortable. And you can start small, you can get comfortable. The beauty of it is that it is writing. You are someone who loves writing, and if you allow yourself to tap into that, instead of having that maybe bizarre idea of what a newsletter is supposed to be, I hope you're going to have as much fun writing and sending them out as the five of us. If you have any other questions related to newsletters, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're going to take a look at the questions there in a few minutes. Before we do that, I have a set of 3 questions that I'd like to ask all of you. And I'd love if you could answer them very quickly. The first thing that comes to your mind, or maybe the first thing that you really want to share with those watching this right now. The first question is, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who is struggling to monetize their work as a writer or creator? Justin, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So I'm probably the odd one out in this group that I don't think that it's all about monetizing your work as a creator. That's not my goal as a writer. My goal is to connect with people, and there's nothing wrong with monetizing your work. Please don't hear me say that, but that's just not my goal. And so I think that the way that I would answer the question is, if you're struggling to monetize the work, what is your goal? Is that really what you're trying to achieve? Or are you trying to connect with people? Are you trying to educate people? Like why are you doing the thing that you're doing? And then let's talk about that instead of, I'm not making the dollar signs that I want to see on my posts or whatever. Like, I think that's not the question that I like to answer. So that's kind of an answer to your question and kind of not at the same time, but I hope people find that helpful.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. John, would you like to go next?
Sure. So when I was like 23 or 24 years old, I was working actually at an office job for a little bit when I had recently graduated college. And it was like post startup, and we got purchased by outside investors, and the CEO came in. And I remember we did like a roundtable, be able to ask him questions. And he mainly wanted to like I think hear questions about like, which direction are you taking the company in and stuff like that. But I was as big a buffoon as I am today with just asking the questions that are on my mind. And I asked him, I said, like, as a 24-year-old person who sees something in himself and wants to strive to become something, maybe that's a CEO of a tech company or not, whatever. But I said, like, what advice would you give me? And he said, he goes, this is the first time I've ever been a CEO, and I'm scared to do certain things. And what I keep coming back to is like, you're always going to be scared in life to make certain decisions or to take on roles that maybe you are telling yourself that you're not prepared for. And when you ask that question to yourself, like, am I prepared, or I'm afraid of this? He says, respond with so what? And then continue from there. Like, so, you're scared, so what? Like, try it. You're scared to publish your first article on Medium. Like, so what? I know it's scary. All 5 of us here have been scared of that moment. Well, maybe not Tony. Tony said he's not. But no, like, I think there's always going to be moments, and especially when you take a chance on yourself, because it's not like you're hiding behind your 9-to-5 job. Like, no, this is my writing. I'm putting it out for the world. I'm creating, I'm sending this email. This is me. Like, that gets scary. I do think that, like, on the other side of it is always a level up. And whenever I'm working on a launch right now and a new offer, and like, it scares me. There's times I wake up just at 4 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh, did I have this right? And it's like, those thoughts are always going to be there, and you have a choice. You can say so what and push forward, or you can look back in 20 years and think, what if, not to get too crazy with everyone, but that'd be my advice.
Love that. Zuli, I know that you had some of the thoughts John just described. We talked a lot about these fears and about whether we should do things or shouldn't, or I asked you for advice, or the other way around. If you look back at the last couple of years and everything you have done, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone struggling to monetize their work?
Ask for money. And it sounds bad. It sounds like a really stupid, obvious piece of advice, but I was terrified because I didn't think I was worth the money. As soon as I started asking people, like, literally, I asked for tips on my newsletter. I asked my friends and my contacts if they had any freelance writing opportunities that they think might be a good fit for me. I started selling stuff a little bit more aggressively. Like, even the difference between sending a product, like trying to sell a product with one email versus like sending a series of 4 or 5 emails, that counts as asking for money. That was what helped me monetize my business. I stopped being shy, I guess similar to John, and I started just going out there and asking for money. And I found, okay, thank you, Mikey, for quoting me. That's hilarious. Sorry to sell the comment, but this made all the difference. And I found that when I asked for money, people wanted to give it to me. My audience and my freelance clients, they were excited to work with me and get something of value.
It actually just came to my mind. I remember, and I think that was a long time ago. It was when you launched your first, and I think that was more like a small course.
Yeah.
You had a lot of people, you told me, reaching out to you and saying, hey, Zuli, I don't really need this exact offer right now, but I've been watching your YouTube videos. I've spent like dozens of hours reading your content, watching your videos. I'm just buying this now because I want to give back.
Yeah.
I think maybe you want to share a few more thoughts on that, but I remember you telling me that, and I think that's like the most wonderful kind of feedback you can get, because you've been serving people for so long without even having something to sell, that they came back to you.
It was humbling, honestly. It caught me completely by surprise. But I think most creators will experience something similar. I think a lot of writers find it hard to sell. I think it's just something that is intrinsic about a lot of us, is we don't like to ask for money. But when you don't give your audience or your clients an opportunity to pay you what they think you're worth, you're robbing them of the opportunity to give back to you too. It feels a little, I guess it maybe feels like you're being arrogant to think that, but you're not. People who love your work want to give back to you. They want to support what you do, and they want to make sure that you can keep doing it. And like that realization, it was really fantastic.
Love that. Thanks for sharing. Tony, what are your thoughts?
I feel like every time I give advice, it's some variant of encouraging people to push themselves, because like all the financial rewards are at the higher levels and everyone's capable of going there. It's hard to have the confidence to get there. And I was thinking about this story. I've been using this story actually that I'd heard about Penn and Teller and magic tricks. Essentially, one of their explanations for how to pull off a magic trick is that there's an obvious explanation, but to pull off that explanation would be way more work than anyone would bother with. It's like you chop down a tree and your card is inside the tree, right? Well, one way you could have done that is grown the tree around your card, right? That would take 10 years. Why would anyone do that, right? But that's how they did it, right? And so I was thinking about some of the highest performing articles on Medium. I have this iPhone article is one where I'd spent 2 years working on it, and I had tested it on hundreds of people. I'd taken snippets of it and tested them as articles ahead of time. And by 2 years into it, which is way more than anyone should spend on a single blog post, I was quite confident that it was going to do well. And even if it didn't do well, I was a better writer for having gone through it. And so it got 2 million views. It was Tim Ferriss's third most linked thing that he'd linked to in that year. And there's another article, there's another Better Humans article, Buster Benson's cognitive bias cheat sheet. And I was talking to him. He said, he spent basically 2 months almost full time working on that article. And I know that's not repeatable. You can't do that 100 times in a row, but I think it's worth every now and then just really trying to push yourself to go way beyond what you think you're capable of as a writer, and see what's the level of success look like there. And it pays off in usually a bunch of different ways. One is just you become a better writer that way.
Thank you so much. That I love that anecdote and how it actually does apply, I think, to many of us. I have 2 more questions that I'd love each of you to answer really quickly. Second question, what was one mistake you made in your professional career and what did you learn from it? Justin.
So I thought of this example when we were talking about newsletters, so it's appropriate now. And so somebody in the chat also asked about time to write newsletters. And so my secret is that I write them in batches. I'll write a month's worth of newsletters in a weekend, and then schedule them to go out at the appropriate times. And a few months ago, actually, I goofed up and I scheduled the newsletters and didn't think about it, and then sent out blank templates to everybody on the Tuesday slot because I forgot to actually copy and paste the content into the newsletter tool for that particular week. And because I had done it weeks before, I don't go back in and look on the night before to make sure everything's good. And so it was, it was just a blank newsletter that went out to it had my filler text. I put TKs everywhere where I meant to paste in the stuff. And so what I learned from that is that people understand that you're human. And I got some people that responded and replied to that email that were pissed that I would send that. And I understand that. I interrupted their day with meaningless nothing. But then I got a lot of people that responded and said, I've done the same thing. I've emailed people at work and forgot to include something. And so that kind of stuff happens. And that's the kind of stuff that helps you overcome the fear of this has to be perfect every time, or it's going to fail, or I have to make sure that I dot all the I's, and you do have to edit it to an extent, but we're not perfect and we're going to make mistakes, and people are generally forgiving in that aspect.
Love that. I think all of us can relate to that. I've done many of those myself, and it's not fun in that specific moment. But looking back, you do realize that it is okay to make mistakes, especially if they're really human and you're trying to do it better next time. John, what is a mistake you made, and what did you learn from it?
So the one that's coming to my head, because I don't know, something that I stand by is like make new mistakes in life. Like that's part of what life is about, is making mistakes, make sure they're new, you know, don't make the same mistake. But one that I made was, again, similar to the story I just shared. I was like 23, 24 years old at this first job out of college. And this helped me kind of go into this character shift of emphasizing trust over a lot. Is I was in a sales role, and when we had been purchased, even though I was meeting certain revenue goals, just to be able for that company now to sell it again, you needed certain call volume calls. And I was, for lack of a better phrase, faking my call volume. And that ended up catching up to me very quickly as a young man. And I realized then, and that put me into the world of fine dining, which again taught me a lot of lessons, but I realized that professional mistake of thinking that you could fake integrity, and you could fake, like you could, maybe not fake is the best word, but you could create an illusion of integrity. And when you're really tasked with performing work, you're going to need to either do it, show up, do the best job that you can, or find something that better suits you. And I think that's why, like, maybe my neuroses with certain things of putting my content, you know, and always wanted to build trust is like, if I'm going to believe, like, bet on myself and put my work into the world, you can't fake, you know, metaphorically a call log. You know, you can't fake. I mean, the elephant in the room, I think there's a lot of people on content platforms that fake, you know, their life, whether it's Instagram influencers or business people, or like, I think that always catches up with you. If we're thinking long-term here, if we're thinking like a 12-month time horizon minimum. And that taught me a valuable lesson that I now take with me in virtually everything that I do professionally, personally, is to don't fake the call log. Okay. So
Awesome. Awesome. Love that. Zuli, what is a mistake you made, and what can others learn from it, or what did you learn from it?
I was an overachiever in school. I was like a nerd. I was top of the class. I was the best. I say this without any, it was just true. When I started writing, I thought the same thing applied. I thought I was the exception. I was like, I don't need a newsletter. I don't need to learn about SEO. I can do this without all those things. They scare me. I don't want to do them, whatever. As soon as I started doing them, things went well because every other creator who had done this thing before me was saying the exact same thing, which is learn a little bit about SEO. Start a newsletter, sell some products. It's not complicated. I thought I was better than that. I thought it like, or even like listicles. Like I was like, I don't need to do listicle. I am better than a listicle. I'm going to ignore all the conventional advice and, you know, go my own way. Going your own way is a lot harder, and it's much easier to go the way that everybody is telling you to go sometimes, because it's a well-trod way for a reason, which is learning a little bit about SEO, doing a newsletter, writing content that's easy and fun to read. Tends to work pretty well. So my mistake was being a little arrogant maybe, and thinking that I didn't need to do things that everybody else was saying were really good because I was special. Just putting it out there.
Amazing. Those have been 3 really interesting replies and answers. Love that. Tony, what is your mistake that you want to share with us?
I mean, there's a pattern that I look for in myself, and there's so many examples of it. It's essentially, like, I'm very, again, to like start with a brag, like Zuli just said, like, I'm like very good at a version 1, because I have I have just so much experience of, I can write software, I can like do basic sales and marketing. Like, there's many times in my life I've built a product and got it out to paying customers in less than a week, right? And some people take months or years to get a business going. But then I'm the slowest person in the world at version 2. Like, that 1 week prototype that has paying customers, that's theoretically I should have learned a lot from. Like, I might not come back to it again for a whole year. And I think that the thing is a little bit about this theme we're talking about is like expecting success right away rather than understanding, you know, kind of what is the level where success starts to come, and how much work do I have to do to get there. And so I just try to remind myself, like, version 1 is just one of many steps, and I have to keep pushing before I can reasonably expect to get any sort of success.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really insightful. I think a lot of people struggle with the opposite of when they think about their articles in terms of version 1. I mean, you already said that getting that first draft out, starting and actually finishing the article, so you in the next step can edit it. So it's interesting to see or to hear about that opposite experience. My last question to all of you, let's just answer that in a few quick sentences. Imagine you would have to start to build your audience from scratch. You are starting with 0 followers, 0 audience, but you do have the experiences you have now. What would you do, Justin?
So in terms of practical steps, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would do, but the one thing that I think that is important for people to hear is exactly what Tony just said, that I can't expect that I'm going to get to the same level of, if I'm rebuilding my audience, of where that audience is today. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take effort. And that I think it's to temper the expectations as to what happens right away. And so that would be my answer.
Awesome. John, what is your take on that?
Well, number one, I would attend every single training webinar that CNM hosts. Would be the number one thing I would do, practical. Number 2 is, so I've been doing this now for many years, 4+ years, and for about 3+, I was very in my lane. I was very focused on my work. And only in the last, really 2022, so 9.5 months, have I really started to branch out and speak with other people that are in, this creator community. And I think just conversations, Zoom conversations, asking for help, which is something that's very hard for me to do at times, from people who are maybe 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of me, not taking it personally if they never get back to you, but to really put yourself out there, because at the end of the day, the content that you write is read by humans. The product that you sell is bought by a human. The people that want to lift you up, or the person that wants to hire you as a freelance client, is a human. And the more you put yourself in front of humans that could lend a hand or give you perspective, I think will speed up the entire growth process.
Awesome. I can totally, like, my experience has been this exact same. Connecting and that human part was not part of my journey in the beginning. I wish I had started that a lot sooner. Zuli, what is your answer? What would you do or be careful about if you had to start to build your audience from scratch?
I think I would speed run what I did over the past 4 years, but like you said, plus all the knowledge. I would write at least 1 article per week, and I would post it on Medium. I would SEO optimize it because I know how to do that now. Once I started getting, and I would post it in publications, because I really believe publications are key on Medium to finding an audience. After maybe a couple of months, I would probably start a YouTube channel about the same kind of stuff I write about and build my audience. I would start a newsletter a heck of a lot sooner. So if I had to do it all over again, that's what I would do. And I actually did do this last year. I made a brand new Medium account from scratch, and it did. I was making like over $1,000 a month from it at a couple points. So I know I can do it, and I know my strategies work.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your insights. Tony, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a personal answer rather than, like, I don't know what the best advice is necessarily for all people. But what had attracted me, because I was thinking about this before I took this job, I was thinking, what if my life was just research and writing for the most part? And I was working with a newsletter coach. His name was Justin Cox. He's on this call. And we, first of all, I mean, it was, think about what is the product and how good does it need to be. And I wrote a newsletter every day, every weekday for 270 issues of that. And that was just, I mean, it took that much work just to find my voice. But the thing that I thought that I could do reliably to grow an audience was SEO. Like I think that there's something really appealing and also satisfying about trying to write the definitive guide to any topic. And so I started using the newsletter as research for longer form SEO pages. And that was the kind of the direction I was going. Because it feels like a lot of times channels for growth come and go, or they rely on things I'm not that great at, which is like virality. And so for me, SEO is like the one growth channel that really felt that fit who I was. And that's what was attracting me in that moment. Then I got sucked into this job, and I can't do that. So I don't know if it would have worked, but that's where I was headed.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. We are running out of time, but there's one question I see in the chat that I think is actually really interesting and probably a really nice way to wrap up this session. It's from Christina, and Christina says, how do we create opportunities for ourselves using Medium as a catalyst rather than simply waiting for opportunities to come our way? I think that everyone on this call has a lot to share on that, a lot of different perspectives, maybe things we tried, things that worked or didn't work. Who wants to share a few thoughts on that specific question? How do we create opportunities instead of waiting for them to come our way?
I'm happy to start because I actually tried to do something. I tried to reverse engineer an accident and it worked. So I can talk a little bit about like a strategy I've used. I saw Christina's question come up and I'm glad it's being addressed now because I thought it was a great one. So I think one of the best ways to do it is so for example, if you want to get a freelance client using Medium, is to use Medium as a way to get your dream article in front of your dream client, even if they don't know who you are yet, and then pairing that with a little call to action at the bottom, and just being really intentional about the kind of content you create. So for example, if I wanted to be hired by a company that sells cat toys, which I would love to if you're watching this, I would do a lot of research on SEO and look for things that the ideal customer of this company, what are they searching for on Google? Because I can bet that when that company does market research, they're going to be searching for the same thing too. So I would write something like top 16 cats for bored indoor cat, or cat toys for bored indoor cats or something like that. And I would do my best to make it rank on Google. I would do my best to put it in a publication on Medium that is about that specific topic, and really do everything in my power to make sure it got in front of my dream ideal client, whoever they may be. And then at the bottom, I would say, hey, I'm a freelance writer. I write about cat stuff. If you want to hire me to do this, get in touch here. Here's my email. And I've done this successfully. It happened by accident the first time, but I've done it successfully since then. So that's one actual strategy to create opportunities. Hopefully that helped Christina.
Amazing. Does anyone else want to add anything to that?
I mean,
Sure.
I'll chime in and say that, when I write about nonprofit stuff, because that's what my real job is, is working with nonprofits, I mention that that's what I do. It's part of my expertise. Like Tony talks a lot about proving who you are in your article to why people should listen to you. And so I have a lot of experience working with nonprofits. And so when I write articles about that, which interestingly enough is not often, I do mention it. And I have had people reach out to me as a result of that, because if you're providing great quality content and you're proving to them who you are, in that field or that area, then people will respond.
Awesome.
Yeah.
John, you wanted to say something right before.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, from a very simple perspective, because I've gotten freelance clients too, all of them were inbound towards me, because I think, like, making money through the partnership program, that's amazing, right? Like, I think anyone for a few extra bucks could do that, but I think leveraging a portfolio has so much more value, and what you do every time you publish, and a lot of your first work is probably not going to be ideal, right, into what you believe you're capable of, but the vast majority of my freelance clients have been via either they found me on Medium, or it was even just word of mouth of my personal network knowing what I was doing at that point in my life. And, you know, I have family members that work for a tech company, and I had to write real estate lead stuff. I didn't know anything about it, but it was like, it came my way because I had this portfolio in front of me. And so if you're not making $1 million from the partnership program, that doesn't mean it's a failure. First off, no one is making that, but like, building towards a portfolio of your work can create opportunities for yourself, and get clients and things that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you said the word inbound. It's like, I think Christina's question is, like, has a really simple answer. Just write with a portfolio in mind, put it together as a portfolio. It could just be a single article that links to your top posts and explains why they're worth reading, and then do outbound. Like, go to your, like, just use it as a portfolio. And I think Medium is this really unique way to create a valuable portfolio for any job, because practically every hiring manager wants a good communicator. And so here you can say, like, I think deeply about the topics that matter for this job, and I'm a good communicator. It's a great way to demonstrate. And actually, that is, to go back to the word patterns, that is a really common pattern on Medium. Like, I think a lot of times if you see some professional writing, like, oftentimes they're just about to start looking for a new job, right? Like, they're building a portfolio in order to change careers or change jobs.
That's wonderful. I think this was actually a beautiful question to wrap this up. So thanks, Christina, for bringing it up. I believe that was valuable for a lot of people on the chat now and watching the replay. Thank you all for being here. Zuli, Justin, John, Tony. I said it in the beginning, I'll say it again. I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for taking the time. You are all busy. You have a lot to do. I really appreciate you taking the time, being here, and sharing your honest opinion and perspective on all those topics, and really being here for the community. Thank you so much. To wrap this up, for those of you who are part of the bootcamp, I quickly want to share our final slides for the next steps. So this was day 2. We still have 2 more days to go. If you are not part of the bootcamp yet, you can sign up through the link in the comments now. We have the masterclass on Thursday. There's a separate link for that one. We have a worksheet for today's session that will hopefully help you take some action, or at least think about some action steps that you can take based on what you have heard and learned inside this roundtable. And last but not least, we have our VIP call. So if you're a VIP member, we're going to meet each other in about 30 minutes. If you're not a VIP member yet, you can still join us and be part of the call. Thank you guys for being on this roundtable with me. It's so much appreciated, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next couple of weeks, months, whatever the next opportunity is going to be to chat. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us, Sinem. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.